Hey everyone, tonight we're plunging headlong into a realm where beauty wasn't merely painful, but truly frightening. Imagine this, it's the Middle Ages, and to be deemed beautiful, you essentially had to appear half dead. Think ghostly pale skin, hollow cheeks, and eyes so dark they resembled bruises. You likely won't make it through this, but no worries, it's just a bedtime tale. So before settling in, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you sincerely enjoy my content. Tell me what time it is and where you're watching from. I always love seeing who's tuning in from across the globe. Now, lower the lights, maybe switch on a fan for that gentle background hum. Let's gently begin tonight's adventure together. You're in a cold stone room lit faintly by flickering candlelight. The air smells of beeswax and aged wool. You sit before a warped bronze mirror, trying to perfect your appearance. But what exactly counted as perfect in the 14th century? First, if your skin showed any hint of color, you were already behind. Pale skin wasn't a preference, it was compulsory. It shouted wealth. If you were tanned, it meant you labored outside like a peasant. Gross. Yet paleness alone wasn't enough. You needed translucent skin with visible blue veins across your forehead and chest. That sickly, nearly cadaverous look was peak beauty. So how did people manage this? Mostly through a dreadful mix of bloodletting and staying indoors like a medieval vampire. You might apply a thick paste of vinegar, crushed pearls, and lead to bleach your skin. Yes, real lead. It burned, eroded your skin, and eventually poisoned your blood. But hey, you looked aristocratic doing it. One famous example is Queen Elizabeth of York. Her portraits show an impossibly pale face, sunken cheeks, and dark eyes beneath a high forehead. All classic beauty for the time, though scholars debate whether these images were accurate or artistic fantasy. Maybe she looked like that, maybe not. What we do know is that the look of death warmed over was a whole aesthetic, and women fully embraced it. Now picture trying to achieve that sunken cheek look. Before contour kits, you'd resort to actual starvation. Wealthy women limited their food not only to stay slim, but to keep that slightly hollow, ethereal face shape. Some even sucked on lemons or rubbed them on their cheeks, hoping the acid would drain the plumpness. Sounds made up? Nope, that's a genuine medieval tip passed down among ladies. Let's not forget the artist's role. Medieval painters didn't aim for realism. Faces were filtered through religious ideals and class fantasies. Smooth, deathly skin wasn't just beautiful, it was holy. A pure soul had to inhabit a flawless body. No flaws, no color, no warmth. If you were lucky, your painter added gold leaf to brighten your halo. Otherwise, you look like a fashionable ghost. But here's the odd, almost comic twist. While noble women tried desperately to look pale and frail, peasant women were actually, alive. They had sun-kissed skin from working outdoors, muscular arms from hauling water, and rosy cheeks from fresh air. To the elite, this was horrifying. To us, honestly, kind of refreshing. Still, the divide was serious. If a noblewoman got too much sun and darkened, it could be scandalous. She might lose status, or worse, be thought morally loose. Beauty and virtue were tightly entwined. Your face wasn't just your image, it shouted your entire identity. If it didn't fit the cold, pale ideal, society made sure you knew it. Now here's a quirky detail. There was a trend, especially in northern Italy, of using leeches for both medical and beauty purposes. Want to clear a pimple or lighten your skin a bit? Attach a few leeches to your face and let them suck. People truly believed the blood they drew carried away impurities. Scientific? Not at all. Painful? Absolutely. Effective? Debatable. And speaking of debates, scholars still discuss whether this beauty ideal was enforced more through fashion or through literature and art. Some argue most women never fully adopted these looks. It was more aspirational. Others say many upper-class women, especially at court, seriously altered their routines and bodies to match the standards. Which is right? We may never know. Diaries are scarce, and beauty wasn't something people candidly wrote about. It was simply expected. But here's the key. The cruel just in lead creams or starvation. It was in the silence. There was no escape, no do-you movement. If you didn't conform, you weren't just unfashionable. You were suspect. Maybe sinful. Maybe diseased. Maybe both. So you stare at your reflection in the blurry mirror. Your skin stings from vinegar. Your cheeks ache from fasting. The candle flickers and you glimpse your face from a different angle. Don't forget the eyebrows. They had to go too. Women plucked them until only a faint shadow remained. Not because they hated expression, but because eyebrows were seen as distracting, even vulgar. A woman's face was to be a clean slate, like a holy relic or statue. Emotions were messy. Emotions made you human, and being human was frowned upon. Here's a strange one. Some women didn't stop at hair removal. They actually dyed their scalp and remaining hair around the forehead to make skin look even whiter by contrast. Imagine applying white chalk or powdered bone dust just above your brows so your face glowed with unnatural paleness. Not flattering, not realistic, but expected. Of course, none of this was painless. Infections were common. Tools were primitive, hygiene poor, and a slip of the hand could cause wounds or raw skin. And don't think you could pause the routine. Let your hairline creep forward and whispers begin. Is she lazy? Has she lost virtue? Maybe she's poor. Maybe worse. Not everyone bought into this madness. In rural medieval Europe, many women rejected the trend. They had bigger worries, freezing or dying in childbirth. But in noble courts from Paris to London, this was the standard. Beauty wasn't just looks, it was a social contract. Break it and risk losing marriage prospects, reputation, even inheritance. Historians debate how widespread the forehead obsession was. Some say it was confined to fashion-obsessed courts. Others think it spread to middle-class homes, where women mimicked elites out of hope or desperation. Truth likely lies in between. What's clear is that the high forehead became a cultural shorthand for femininity, virtue, and aristocratic grace. It's unsettling. In a world where women had few choices, controlling appearance was one of the only ways to assert identity. But even that choice was a trap. You weren't choosing how to look. You were choosing how to suffer. So you lean forward in your candlelit mirror, skin burning from vinegar, scalp red from plucking. Your hairline now passes inspection and your eyebrows barely visible. You look serene, silent, unreadable, and honestly kind of haunted. Okay, your skin is pale enough. Great. You resemble a walking manuscript illustration of a ghost. But now it's time to address something even stranger. Your forehead. Yes, the forehead. In the Middle Ages, the higher it was, the hotter you were. And if today's contouring seems extreme, prepare yourself. Now you pluck your hairline back literally one hair at a time. This is no joke. The ideal medieval woman's forehead stretched halfway to her scalp. It signified intelligence, nobility, and spiritual purity. To get it, women plucked, shaved, or rubbed their skin raw with walnut oil or vinegar-soaked bandages to shed hair. Eyebrows gone, baby hairs exiled. Some even shaved the top of their head back an inch or two to push the hairline further. Think original 5 head, and it was golden. Historians debate whether this forehead obsession stemmed from beauty ideals or religious imagery. Many Virgin Mary depictions show her with a high, smooth forehead. Not surprising, since the church controlled most art and culture. Women were expected to model themselves after the divine. A smooth, expressionless brow symbolized calm control. You weren't supposed to look emotional, but serene. Imagine the daily upkeep, sitting by the hearth at dawn, tweezers in hand, pulling out hairs while trying not to cry. Tears puff skin so you'd smear crushed rose petals under your eyes to reduce swelling. Beauty here was a job, no days off. There's a strange medieval French case of a noblewoman named Isabeau of Bavaria, who plucked her hairline so harshly it permanently damaged scalp follicles. She wore huge headdresses to hide bald patches. These became so heavy she developed neck problems. No chiropractors then, just prayers. Speaking of headwear, the high forehead came with elaborate wimples, hennins, and snoods to frame and emphasize it. The hennin, the cone-shaped princess hat from fairy tales, was often tilted back to spotlight the forehead. Bonus points if your forehead was veiny. It meant thin, delicate skin like parchment, which everyone adored. What's funny and awful is that even if you lacked the perfect forehead, you had to pretend. Portrait artists elongated faces and exaggerated brows, whether you liked it or not. Some historians now think many medieval portraits were edited like Instagram filters, smoothing features. The more things change, no one wanted to be the woman at court with a pretty face but dragon breath. Now it gets stranger. In some courts, there was an unspoken rule about when a woman could show her teeth. A smile was allowed, but only the faintest, tightest, Mona Lisa level. No open laughter. That would reveal too much. Plus, joy wasn't seen as feminine. You were to look ethereal, slightly sad, as if waiting for your husband's return or God's call. More enthusiasm was inappropriate. A debated theory says upper-class women sometimes trained to suppress laughter, so faces wouldn't contort, reveal teeth, or deepen smile lines, preserving delicate powdered skin. Whether formal instruction or social pressure, facial restraint was real. Beauty wasn't just looks, it was stillness. Imagine being a teen in this world, friends trying to shrink teeth without braces or whitening strips, just prayers and pumice. Born with crooked or large teeth? Tough luck. You might be laughed at or avoided. Wealthier families sometimes removed visible teeth to make mouths look smaller. Pain and infection risk were worth it for a good marriage. It wasn't all hopeless. Some rare medieval beauty manuals in monasteries offered mild remedies for whitening teeth and freshening breath without destruction. One suggests rubbing sage leaves on teeth and drinking mint-infused wine. One of the more reasonable tips so far. Yet the quiet cruelty lingers, the idea you must silence your body to be good. Shrink everything, voice, mouth, appetite. The smaller you appeared, literally and metaphorically, the more perfect you became. So here you are again in your chamber. You haven't smiled for hours. You chew fennel seeds between meals and scrape teeth with crushed eggshells. You avoid laughing even when amused. Beauty then was discipline, not joy. If your teeth hurt, don't worry, it means it's working. Your forehead is now the envy of noblewomen from London to Lubeck. You sacrificed eyebrows, scalp, and maybe sanity to get the prized, pale, expressionless canvas ready for judgment and admiration. But don't relax yet. Tonight we descend further into madness. Teeth. Tiny, discreet, impossibly delicate teeth that never show, never smile too wide, and must not look like you've eaten anything harder than grapes. Medieval beauty law made the mouth a contradiction. It had to be there but shouldn't do much. No loud laughs, no toothy grins, no yelling because your goat got loose. Lips were to stay closed, demure, mysterious. Teeth, the smaller the better. Ideally white, small, evenly spaced, invisible most of the time. If anyone saw your teeth, you failed femininity. This standard had moral weight. A small, closed mouth signaled modesty and control. Large teeth or wide mouths suggested gluttony, vulgarity, or sexual promiscuity. Women with big mouths were loud, opinionated, or worst, unladylike. The goal seemed barely there, a soft breeze with delicate bones and no opinions. Fun times. A 14th century French romance praises a heroine's teeth as so fine and small they wouldn't break grapeskin. Romantic, unless eating steak, then doomed. Noble chewing was ornamental. Oral hygiene? Nightmare. No Colgate. People used herbs, vinegar, salt, burnt rosemary ash to scrub teeth if they bothered at all. Commoners usually didn't. Elites more likely, but focus was appearance, not health. You might rub gums raw whitening teeth, but preventing decay wasn't priority. An ironic tragedy, women trying hardest to maintain teeth did most damage. Records show use of ground coral and brick dust to polish enamel. Brick dust. It looked good until enamel wore away. Teeth crumbled in gums. The medieval beauty pinnacle, small pearly teeth that eventually rotted out. But at least you looked pious. Breath mattered too. You couldn't show perfect teeth with breath like boiled eel and sadness. Medieval women chewed herbs, parsley, mint, cloves. Some used rosewater rinses, little medical effect, but masked bad diet evidence. In parts of Italy, women chewed fennel seeds and sprinkled cinnamon before socializing. You're pale, hollowed, hairless where wrong, and mouth small enough to pass medieval muster. You should be golden, right? No, now comes the tying piece, being thin. Not just thin, but fragile, ethereal, one missed meal from sainthood. In the Middle Ages, looking starved wasn't just fashion, it was holy. Fasting wasn't just for monks or mystics. Noble women wore hunger as a badge of spiritual devotion and social rank. The thinner, the more virtuous. Full figures suggested indulgence, gluttony, or moral weakness. The ideal body was soft but slight, delicate yet shapely, like a sculpture that might shatter from a breath. This wasn't secret either. Aristocratic courts flaunted fasting. Women attended feasts but barely touched food, delicately sipping wine or picking bread with exaggerated grace. It wasn't just health, it was power. Denying pleasure publicly said, I control myself, I'm closer to God, I'm better than you. Take St. Catherine of Siena, a famous example of medieval fasting. She claimed to live years on only the Eucharist, a communion wafer. Some historians think she had anorexia, though unknown then. Her starvation was seen as divine devotion. Canonized, her gaunt, glowing image shaped ideals for centuries. Here it gets murky. Spiritual purity and appearance weren't just linked, they were indistinguishable. Naturally thin, pale women were seen as blessed, even saint-like. Those who worked for it through starvation, herbs, or flagellation were admired differently for their suffering. There's the concept of holy anorexia, not medical but spiritual, applied to women fasting to hallucination and ecstasy. Some noble families encouraged daughters to starve, seeing it as saintly or enhancing family prestige, starving a child as a career move. Men did similar in monasteries, but fasting hit women differently. It became a gendered performance, not just purging sin, but proving holiness beyond hunger, purity beyond earthly needs. The body wasn't yours, it was a shrine. Now back to the daily grind. Imagine waking in your cold stone chamber by a weak fire. Your maid brings stale rye and goat milk, but you refuse. You're fasting, meaning keeping up appearances. Your head aches, limbs weak, but you smile faintly and carry on. You faint during prayers. No one notices. Among noble women, an unspoken contest. Who eats least, who lasts longest without food, who survives on herbs and broth yet stands during mass. Brutal, isolating. Even fashion reinforced this. Gowns tight at ribs, emphasizing narrow waists. Lacing cinched bodies, early corsetry. Some gowns had no stretch, barely allowing a full breath, let alone a meal. The silhouette was long, narrow, reed-like. Curves okay, hips bust, but stomach flat, ribs discreet. Your frame said, "I live on air and prayer." Scholars debate how far these standards reached. Did all nobles starve? Or did male poets, clerics, and artists exaggerate ideals? Much knowledge is secondhand. Men writing women, artists painting saints, religious leaders praising devotion while harming lives. But physical evidence, corseted bones, letters, manuscripts suggest many women lived these ideals daily. Class divisions existed. Peasant women couldn't fast or were not expected. They needed energy for fieldwork, childbirth, labor. Higher on the social ladder, plates stayed emptier. Irony, the rich had food yet were praised for feigning hunger. A weird fact, some women chewed food, then discreetly spat it out. Predigestion, rejection. A court-approved eating disorder centuries before it had a name. So here you are at dinner in your candlelit hall. Your lord eats roast pheasant. The rich aroma twists your stomach. You sip watered wine, feigning indifference. Your gown tight at ribs. You haven't eaten fully in days, but are praised for lightness and grace. You feel dizzy. Someone says, "You look radiant tonight." You faintly smile. You're starving, but that's the point. You've stopped eating, erased your eyebrows, and shrunk your mouth to a delicate, well-mannered smirk. But you're not done. Now for the final, arguably most impossible medieval beauty layer. Purity. Not just physical purity, the big one looming over every girl from first steps, virginity. Not real-life virginity, but a fantasy, chastity woven from religious dogma, courtly love poetry, and wishful thinking. The virgin ideal. In the Middle Ages, a beautiful woman wasn't just appealing. She had to look and act as if ignorant of sex. If married, ideally still appeared virginal. The standard was ridiculous, ethereal, untouchable, graceful yet innocent, mysterious but morally transparent. Basically a walking contradiction in a pricey dress. Rooted in religion, the Virgin Mary was the perfect woman, kind, obedient, selfless, eternally untouched. Artists and poets elevated her as womanhood's ideal. Real women were expected to mold themselves into that impossible shape. Pale, passive, pure. Picture being 13 or 14, marriage talks starting. Your mother warns you to walk modestly, avoid men's eyes, and whisper only when spoken to. You learn to sit with ankles crossed, lower your eyes demurely, say no with just enough angelic confusion. You're warned that showing too much interest in anything risks impurity. Passion is suspect. Your clothes blend innocence and allure, modest cut but expensive fabrics signaling privilege. You may wear a veil, not just for style, but since visible hair means temptation. The more covered, the better your reputation. Modesty was sometimes legally enforced. In medieval Italy, laws dictated how much skin unmarried women could show. Yes, purity police existed. A famous tale is Agnes of Rome, a 12-year-old canonized for refusing marriage and protecting chastity to death. Her legend taught young women devotion and moral superiority. In art, she's shown with a lamb, symbolizing innocence, and an expressionless face as if mildly sedated. This was the vibe to emulate, pure, passive, silent. Here's the kicker. Your features were supposed to reflect purity. Small, modest nose, large eyes, great as long as they didn't sparkle with curiosity, high, smooth forehead, Nothing says virgin like a huge blank canvas above your brows. Medieval writers described beauties with milk-white skin, golden hair, and voices so soft they couldn't disturb birds. Poetic, but basically meaning never raise your voice above a whisper. Let's talk hair. In medieval symbolism, hair was a loaded weapon. Loose hair signaled seduction, danger, and lack of control. Brides wore hair down only on their wedding day, symbolizing virginity and transition. Afterward, hair was covered or tightly braided. Loose hair was like a neon sign saying temptress. Rules were unspoken but strict. Being mistaken for a loose woman had brutal consequences. Stakes were physical, not just social. Women suspected of sexual impurity could be shamed, disinherited, exiled, or even killed. A rumor, jealous suitor, or unlucky garden encounter could ruin you. Noble daughters were political assets. Questioned virginity could sink marriage alliances. Pressure was real, constant. There's scholarly debate whether purity standards affected daily life or were idealized male projections. Poetry is full of untouched maidens and flawless, gossiped, flirted, loved. They wrote poems, traded secrets, found moments of rebellion, all behind veils and fabric layers, always watching their backs. In the medieval world, being seen as impure wasn't just gossip risk. It could ruin your life. So here you sit in the garden under your chaperone's watchful eye. You speak softly, hands folded, eyes downcast. You're 13 but know the script perfectly. You must be beautiful but not too much. Innocent but not naive. Seen but not heard. You hear a giggle behind the hedge, some careless girl whispering with a page boy. You tense, not jealousy, but fear. You know how quickly that becomes a story. In this world, one story can become your legacy. You've nailed the holy trifecta, pale, quiet, virginal. But something's missing. Your hair, your literal crown, isn't just there by chance. In medieval times, hair color could make or break your existence. If aiming for elite beauty, only one color would do. Blonde, not honey blonde or brassy yellow, luminous, sun-kissed spun gold, glowing like a halo in candlelight. If not born with it, too bad. You'd fake it, even burning your scalp with homemade bleach. This obsession didn't come from nowhere. Blonde symbolized purity, youth, and heavenly grace. Artists painted angels and saints with flowing blonde locks, even when depicting women from non-blonde regions. The symbolism was deep. Blonde meant divine, delicate, and probably destined to die young. Lovely, right? Brunettes and redheads had problems, so women used horrific DIY treatments to lighten hair. One method soaked hair in lye, alum, and stale urine, then sunbathed for hours. Yes, urine. It didn't always work. When it did, hair turned dry, straw-like with possible chemical burns. Beauty win, maybe nerve damage. A notorious 15th century Italian recipe mixed saffron, lemon juice, and goat urine, applied to hair then baked in sun under a brimmed hat with the top cut out to roast hair. The goal, lighten pigment. Result, usually fried hair into crispy medieval regret. Wigs weren't an option, rare, seen as theatrical or deceptive, and unbearable under veils. Some used thin, golden-hued veils for illusion, but no substitute for real blonde. You wanted shine and approval from priest to suitor, scalp damage be damned. A historical example, Lucrezia Borgia, early Renaissance, famed for golden hair sent as diplomatic gifts, strands preserved in jewelry and letters as power tokens. Natural or bleached? Debated. Point. Golden hair meant influence, turning women into legends or well-married nobles. This ideal excluded whole groups. Dark-haired women from Southern Europe or the Middle East were portrayed as seductive, dangerous, or morally ambiguous. In medieval poetry, dark-haired temptresses spelled trouble, while golden maidens were castle-bound brides. Racial and cultural undertones ran deep. Blonde wasn't just beautiful, it was superior. Interestingly, while the church pushed modesty and chastity, romantic literature and troubadour poetry fanned the blonde obsession. The perfect lady was golden-haired, gentle, and mysteriously sad. Men fell at her feet, sang under her window, or died in jewels defending her honor. Blonde hair became the emblem not only of holiness, but of intense drama. Naturally, women emulated this ideal, even knowing it was false and dangerous. A documented 14th century English noblewoman went blind after accidentally getting bleach in her eyes while lightening her hair. Her servants swore she was trying to match the golden hue of a lady in a painting. Art imitating life, or life copying art with permanent eye damage. But consequences weren't always so visible. Repeated chemicals caused hair loss, infections, and scalp sores. And the smell. Many bleach agents, especially urine-based ones, made women smell like farm animals in midsummer. You'd enter court like Aphrodite, but reek like stables. The lengths people went to for beauty. Yet it wasn't just hair color, it symbolized what you represented. You weren't merely bleaching hair, you bleached your identity, aligning with a mythic womanhood unattainable and deadly for most. Blonde was a shortcut to grace, love, and heaven. It was unfair. But medieval beauty was never fair. Historians debate how much pressure women felt to follow blonde ideals. Some claim it was mainly elite courts where women had time and means to ruin their hair for fashion. Others argue obsession trickled to merchant and middle classes, especially in cities like Venice and Florence, where looks meant opportunity. Even men played a role by writing endless odes to sun-haired maidens and golden angels. The poetic image set the bar. Women were expected to meet it. Genetics, chemistry aside, just bleach, pray, and bake in the sun like glowing meatballs. Now back in your chamber, you sit by the window with a stinging scalp. You followed a whispered beauty manual's recipe. Sun beats down through your straw hat's open circle. Your hair steams. You smell faintly of lemons and livestock. A servant fans you lazily. You feel lightheaded, maybe just from the fumes. Later at court, someone glances your way. Your hair catches candlelight. It shimmers. For a moment, you think, maybe this was worth it. Then another looks, you smile faintly and tell yourself not to scratch because it still really burns. By now, you've probably realized medieval beauty was less about being alive and more about seeming to fade away. But don't think this obsession with delicacy meant people smelled delicate. Welcome to the rank underbelly of medieval beauty culture, where baths were rare, sweat constant, and your nose the unsung hero keeping you conscious each day. First, no, medieval folks weren't totally allergic to washing. They bathed more than myths say when they could. But for noble women, hygiene wasn't always about health. It was about appearances. You were to smell fresh and floral, but without getting wet. Actual bathing was seen as dangerous to the soul or fertility. Medical experts claimed hot water opened pores, inviting disease, sin, or both. Nothing says medical wisdom like blaming your tub for plague outbreaks. So what did women do? Instead of baths, they perfumed heavily. They doused themselves in rose water, lavender oils, crushed violets, and spiced vinegar. Some stuffed undergarments with dried herbs like mint, marjoram, and thyme, turning corsets into medieval potpourri pouches. Linen sheaths and veils were laundered more than the body, a constant attempt to fake cleanliness. Then came scent masks, not COVID style, but perfume shields. Gloves, pomanders, small balls filled with aromatic resins, garlands worn or pinned inside dresses. Not just decoration, functional armor. Upper classes knew things stank. The key was to stink better. Let's talk hair, since we tortured it earlier. If you thought scalp care was modern obsession, think again. Medieval women often went weeks without washing hair, rubbing scented oils to mask buildup. Rosemary, clove oil, bay leaves were popular, not for cleanliness, but to convince others their head wasn't a small ecosystem. A 14th century beauty manual oddly recommends boiling rosemary and wine to rinse hair and cheer the brain. Sounds nice until you recall how lice made homes in braids and veils. Deloosing was a constant itchy battle with combs, vinegar rinses, and many prayers. Not everyone afforded oils and herbs. Poorer city women used public baths until churches deemed them sinful. Bathing with others supposedly led to lust, disease, and moral collapse. Many bathhouses shut or were regulated. Women washed modestly at home with basin cloth and shame. Contradictory again, the same society scolding washing expected women immaculate in look and scent, not just passably clean, but spiritually fragrant. Writers described ideals smelling like lilies, honey, or spring rain. Never sweat, food, or, God forbid, reality. Pressure to smell right wasn't equal. Noble women faced impossible standards. Expected to sit through court hours, heavy clothing, stuffy rooms, yet radiate divine scent. One wrong whiff sparked gossip she's been riding too much, whispered, or worse, she's not what she seems. Worth noting is Isolde of Brittany, overshadowed counterpart to Tristan's Isolde. Praised not just for golden hair and pale skin, but for smelling like flowers even after travel. Poetic metaphor or extreme perfume habit? Unknown. But the idea stuck. Perfect women smelled like May meadows. Scholars debate how seriously to take this. Some say medieval people were pragmatic beyond beauty manuals. Others cite court documents and poems obsessing over scent as proof it mattered. Given rare bathing, smelling even slightly better was social power. An awkward fringe theory claims saints' bodies supposedly smelled sweet after death to support scent obsession. If dead holy women smelled like roses, what hope for sweaty noble women? Morning again. Near the hearth, you rub lavender oil on wrists. A maid combs unwashed hair, removing overnight guests. You dab rose water on neck, tuck mint sachet into bodice, inhale deeply. You don't feel clean, but smell acceptable, maybe good. Later at court, a knight pauses, leans in, says softly, "You smell like spring's first day." You smile faintly, sweating under layers, scalp itching. No real bath in weeks. No one must know. Lavender oil failing? Natural musk ambitious? No problem. You reach for your wooden cosmetics chest and pull out skin cream. By cream, a toxic bubbling mix so potent your apothecary raises an eyebrow. Tonight you enter medieval makeup's glamorous, horrifying world. Lead, mercury, arsenic, and vinegar mixed into face paint. Starting with Suze. Sounds fancy, like French artisan paste. Actually, Susie was thick white paint from vinegar and white lead, aged in clay pots until congealed, smooth, deadly cream. Women used it for perfect no-blood circulation look. Suze covered freckles, blotches, and stress of surviving without antibiotics or rites. It made you angelic, but caused skin to peel if overused. One English noblewoman used Suze daily to keep pale complexion. Eventually, skin was so raw she needed her maid to apply it, avoiding open wounds. Did she stop? No. Beauty standards wait for no one. She upped the dose to mask product damage, a vicious loop centuries before Instagram filters. Lead wasn't only villain. Mercury had its moment in spot removers, fading blemishes, age spots, sun damage. Cream applied at night, often with mask or cloth wrap, so magic worked. Magic meaning nerve damage, tremors, hallucinations, organ failure. Anything to hide that one stubborn freckle. Wondering if everyone used this? Lead and mercury creams were elite only. Costly, hard to make. But nobles led, others followed. Merchant-class women copied looks with watered-down chalk, flour pastes, or ground alabaster with egg whites. None skin-friendly, all got in pores, probably shortened lives. Fascinating and disturbing, these concoctions linked deeply to morality. Smooth white skin symbolized virtue, wealth, and untainted soul. Scars, moles, or tan meant moral suspicion. Belief held outer beauty, mirrored inner. Clean white face meant clean soul, the original good vibes only enforced by death paste. Worse, if poison caused skin damage, you had to hide that too. Blisters, use rose water and crushed pearls. Skin graying, pull out rouge, a toxic red dye made from cinnabar, mercury sulfide. To hide one poison's effects, you applied another. Your routine became chemical warfare in slow motion across your face. Some women, especially rural, used homemade masks from bread dough, honey, or snail slime. Yes, snails. People believe snail mucus rejuvenated skin. Sounds bizarre, but fun fact, snail mucin is now in luxury Korean skincare. Medieval ladies accidentally got that right. Still exceptions. For most, beauty was slow decay ritual. Wake, scrub face with vinegar and salt, apply laid paint, dab questionable red on cheeks, powder with rice flour, pray it lasted through mass and gossip. By evening, face felt like cracked dry lake bed, cracking with every blink, smile like whispered cousin rumors. The cycle never stopped. Wash off, real skin looked worse. Sallow, irritated, human. No choice but restart daily until skin gave out. Scholars debate if cosmetics were mainly for beauty or social control. Some see paleness obsession as reinforcing power structures, nobles over peasants, women over no one. Others say women used makeup to reclaim control in limiting world, painting faces to craft myth even if it killed them. And men? Noblemen rarely wore makeup unless actors are very French, but praised, critiqued, set standards for women's looks. Artists painted impossibly smooth ladies. Poets sang of porcelain skin and berry lips. Clerics wrote about vanity as evil unless beautiful. Hypocrisy, always well-dressed. Back in your room, you open your wooden box, Suze, powdered cinnabar, chalk, oils. Your blotchy skin, roaring cheeks, you dab, blend, smooth to create health, virtue, perfection, illusion. Later walking halls, someone says, your skin is like ivory. You smile, ignoring that by 35 teeth might fall, and bones ache for unknown reasons. Tonight you glow, ready to convince court you're too delicate for this cruel world. This ideal wasn't just unwell look, it hinted deeper. Physically weak women were assumed emotionally sensitive, artistic, spiritually advanced. Men wrote lovers as fading roses, melting snow, ghostly maidens. You weren't of this world. You barely tolerated it. Creepy twist. Sickly beauty blurred life and death. Women compared to corpses in love poems. She lay still as marble, a poet wrote, her breath so light it stirred not air. Romantic yet terrifying. This mood was desired. You wanted to look perishable, not just passive. Burgundy court epitomized this, where pale skin and sorrow were competitive. Ladies fainted at church, swooned in dances, recovered to offer trembling smiles. One noblewoman reportedly drank only rosewater for a week before a banquet for bloodless, divine skin. She barely moved, made huge impression. Scholars debate performance versus illness. Medieval Europe had many diseases, poor nutrition. Many women were unwell. Society aestheticized it. Sick and stylish blurred. Real health became fashion accessory. This trend persisted into Renaissance, Romantic periods, and modern pop culture. Disturbingly timeless, culture praising women most when silent, fragile, barely hanging on. Back in candlelit chamber, you examine face in polished bronze mirror. White powder, crushed berries under eyes, lips tinted as if coughed blood, tastefully. You lie on velvet daybed, arm draped theatrically over forehead. Later, someone whispers, "You look so delicate tonight, almost not here." You smile faintly. That's the look you wanted. You glow. Not health's glow, but faint shimmer of chemicals. In Great Hall torchlight, no one sees damage beneath layers. They see alabaster skin, veiled gold hair, modest smile. You've perfected the mask. Tonight, we explore a trend, giving delicate dying swan beauty a gothic twist. For a while, looking sick was not just fashionable, but divine. Welcome to the age of the sickly look. Everyone wanting to appear one fainting spell from saintliness. This wasn't isolated. It permeated paintings, poems, and court whispers. Women praised for near-translucent paleness, hollow cheeks, dark eyeshadows, bluish lip tint. Beauty markers weren't radiance, but fragility. Physically delicate, emotionally subdued, as if burdened by world or corset. Link between beauty and sickness wasn't new. Medieval Christianity saw suffering as redemptive, saints beautiful in affliction. Women bearing pain, gracefully seen spiritually elevated. Looking ready to swoon meant admiration, assumed closeness to God, refinement, breeding. Not just spiritual flex, fashionable too. Ideal courtly woman had thin wrists, pale fingers, swan neck, and spine suggesting reclining all day on cushioned bench. A cough was a plus, consumptive glow, flushed cheeks, tinted lips. You resembled doomed romance heroine, medieval pre-Victorian tuberculosis chic. Fashion, gowns exaggerated fragile silhouette, long sleeves, tight bodices made arms narrower, waist smaller, cinched under bust for height and delicacy illusion. Head too heavy for body? Perfect. Strength wasn't desired, you were ornament. Clothing alone didn't suffice for sickly chic. Makeup helped, especially lid powders making skin white and powdery. Some darkened under eyes with berries or beetroot, purposely creating eye bags. Dramatic trick, pressing cold spoon under eyes to cause slight swelling and bruising. Result, soft puffy shadow whispering, "I haven't slept and wept for Crusade's lost lover." Add fluttering fan, lace handkerchief, mastered look. Thin enough to seem holy, pale as freshly embalmed, perfumed to distraction. Not limited to women. Medieval young men faced punishing standards. They didn't bleach scalps or smear mercury, but medieval masculinity demanded much. Tonight, the impossible male standards. If your corset feels tight, imagine looking brave, rich, holy while surviving combat. Medieval dreamboat. Tall but not awkward, lean but muscular, wiry like sword with abs. Sharp face, clean shaven, high forehead, yes, plucked hairlines too. Straight nose, clear skin, delicate but calloused hands. Looked like poetry reader, but capable of murder before breakfast. How did men keep skin smooth, features sharp with no barbers, razors, and belief sneezing summoned demons? Carefully and painfully. Young nobles tweezed brows, removed stray hairs, medieval manscaping. Some used vinegar tonics to cleanse skin and prevent pimples, signs of weak character or lust. Beyond face, identity wrapped in body and deeds. Trained from childhood for war, sport, and formal art of looking cool on horseback. Not health or fitness now, but image. Knights judged by armor carriage, dance grace, and poetry recital without tripping over tights. Yes, tights were a thing. Very tight, restrictive, revealing. Men's fashion in later Middle Ages matched women's in constraint. Hose outlined legs and buttocks in painful detail. Codpieces grew so exaggerated, laws tried toning them down. Well-dressed men spent as long as women preparing. smoothing hair by adjusting doublets, choosing colors. Appearance was all, failure could ruin court chances. Historical figure Edward of Woodstock, the Black Prince, embodied this, perfect knightly, skilled, handsome, rich, tragic. Early portraits show classic look, strong nose, soft curls, war-ready but painter-ready. Illness later ravaged him, died young as tragic male beauty adored by society, noble, broken, unreachable. Male pressure was moral and performative. Brave but not too emotional, devout but not dull, courteous but ready to die fighting. Every glance, bow, word at court balanced on tightrope of masculinity, making female standards seem flexible. Consequences, men failing mocked, dismissed, or labeled effeminate. Dressing too elaborately or speaking softly risked unmanliness, label, a dangerous social threat. In hierarchy valuing society, not fitting mold was risky. Fringe theory says, courtly love poetry controlled men as much as romanticized women. Male lovers portrayed gentle, suffering, noble worshippers. Sweet until realizing real men had to perform impossible roles, chase unattainable women while hiding human messiness. Love wasn't enough. It was an art and character test. Side note, some medieval men wore beauty patches, tiny silk face spots covering blemishes or signaling fashion sense. Yes, borrowed from ladies. Patch on cheek, flirtatious. Near eye, dangerous but poetic. Somewhere, a knight in armor carefully placed a patch on his nose, praying it stayed during joust. Not every man worried about looks. Peasant men struggled to survive. In castles and courts, looks were capital. A young man's prospects rose or fell on cheekbone curves or boot shine. Beauty wasn't just attraction, it was moral worth. Clean face meant clean soul. Groomed knight was godlier knight. Bleeding out looking good? Even better. So here you are, a young lord. Bathed, shaved, plucked, oiled, laced into hose tight enough to mimic dismounted warhorse. Hair curled, collar stiff, sword mostly for show. To great hall where ladies fan and men fake alertness. Someone claps you on back, looking sharp like a painting come to life. You nod, smile, say something poetic about moon, walk away, cloak billowing perfectly. Whether she did anything scandalous or not, her mouth alone suggested things church preferred unspoken. Record exists of French noblewoman whose marriage failed after rival court sent portrait exaggerating lip size. Message too sensual, proud, dangerous for wife. She joined convent. Mouth spoke louder than words. Then, smiling, too much frowned upon, pun intended. Closed mouth ideal. Slightly upturned corners perfect. Visible grin suspicious. Full laugh scandalous. Open laughter, especially showing teeth, made woman less mysterious, less controlled. Mystery was currency. Too much joy read as immodest, unfeminine. Lips hovered between silence and suggestion, never full commitment. Not all lip messaging was visual. Some women, especially in French and Italian courts, applied scented balms that made their lips faintly fragrant. Rose-infused wax, clove oils, and honey-based glosses were favored by those wanting soft, inviting mouths without seeming too bold. Again, it was about maintaining balance. You couldn't appear as if you were trying. You needed to smell heavenly, but seem like you'd never kissed anyone in your life. Not even a frog. There's an unusual fringe theory as well. Some historians suggest lip treatments sometimes served as flirtation rituals. A woman might discreetly dab balm within a man's view, her fingers lingering slightly longer. He might understand the signal or not. That was the game. Lips acted as both mask and magnet. Naturally, debates continue. Some scholars claim lip coloring was rare and mostly limited to court entertainers, dancers, or women labeled as fallen. Others argue it was more common, just subtler than modern expectations. After all, surviving records come mostly from moralists and clergy, not the women themselves. Honestly, the best lip artists probably excelled at covering their traces. So, here you sit again, at your vanity. You dip a finger into a small pot of pomegranate balm, gently patting it on. Not too much, just enough to catch light. You blot with linen. Check your reflection, then close lips into the perfect soft line. Neither pout, smirk, nor smile. Later at the banquet, someone glances at you. His eyes flick to your mouth. You pretend not to notice and stay silent. You've powdered your face, starved your body, bleached your hair, maybe even faked fainting spells. You've committed to the look. But what if it didn't end there? Long before corsets became beauty's ultimate torture symbol, medieval women mastered reshaping bodies with clothing. Yes, it's time to discuss corset precursors. Tight-laced bodices, rigid kirtles, bone-stiffened garments squeezed women into shapes shaped not by comfort, but patriarchy and spectacle. Technically, corsets as we know them arrived in the Renaissance. But medieval noblewomen already lived laced-up lives. They wore fitted undergarments called cottes or kirtles, carefully laced to cinch waists and elongate torsos. You couldn't pull one on like a comfy sweater. These required help, servants, patience, and breath-holding for strangers. The goal was always the same: shape the body to ideal form. Long, narrow torso, small waist, gently sloping shoulders, modestly rounded hips. Not too curvy or strong, just enough femininity to suggest childbearing ability, but not enough to imply skill. Subtle, contained, decorative. Forget romantic paintings. Getting into these wasn't elegant. Awkward twisting, breath-sucking, and gagging while someone yanked laces behind you. Often cords dug into ribs or bruised sides if pulled too tight. Linen shifts underneath eased chafing, but barely. No elastic, spandex, or mercy. Household records from the Duchess of Berry report ladies-in-waiting spent up to an hour daily dressing just the torso section. Adjustments depended on activity. Looser for sitting long hours, tighter for public procession to present saintly figure. Translation: she had to look like a beautiful tortured saint on wheels. Here's a twist. Some garments were reinforced with stiff materials like reed, whalebone, or metal strips. Not corsets yet, but heading that way. Fashion evolved, torture intensified. By late 15th century, some bodices were so rigid women couldn't bend at the waist. You didn't sit, you reclined. Dropped something, wait for a servant. Running, forbidden. That was the point. Running wasn't beautiful, and we haven't touched layers yet. Over tight kirtles, you'd wear one or two gowns. Outer gowns could weigh 10 to 15 pounds, embroidered heavily, adorned with jewels, thick velvet sleeves sweeping floors. The idea wasn't graceful movement, it was moving like a saint being slowly ushered forward. Slowness was beauty. Stillness was grace. Movement was for peasants, laced in, perfumed, pale as polished bone. You followed all rules, or so you think. Tonight, we focus on one last tiny detail that could ruin your entire aesthetic: your lips. Yes, those two small lines of flesh were a battleground. In the Middle Ages, lips weren't just for speaking, they signaled. Careless lips could reveal your morality, class, secrets, even when closed perfectly. Color, first. You might think rosy, healthy lips were favored. Wrong. Medieval beauty preferred ethereal, otherworldly. Bright red lips seemed too lively, too earthy, too lustful, and lust was a serious aesthetic no-no. Slight pink tint, maybe. Darker shades invited priestly side eyes or, worse, suspicion of temptation. It gets complicated because lip cosmetics did exist. Women used crushed berries, alkanet root, beet juice, and red wine residue to tint lips, but risky. Depending on place and audience, lip color could brand a woman vain, deceptive, even demonic. Many religious authorities thought painted faces masked true nature, luring men with false beauty. Lips, near speech, and kissing sins were prime suspicion targets. A notorious folklore spoke of a woman with lips so red they bled lies. Subtle, right? Priests said lip staining marked women leading men astray. Better to keep lips bare, pale, unreadable, because, as in everything medieval, beauty whispered safest, never shouted. Yet not all obeyed modesty police. Courts like Burgundy and Venice pushed piety's limits, where subtle lip color became elegant weaponry. A hint of berry said, I'm refined, cultured, desirable, not vulgar. Performance, like everything else. Not enhancing lips, but telling stories. Carefully edited, walking razor-thin line between saint and seductress. A delicious historical tidbit. Some noble households had coded lip color systems. Lightly applied darker stains reserved for evening events, candlelit rooms. Firelight made lips appear flushed but unpainted, warm but not wanting. Some guides suggested applying a coat, blotting, then a second. Yes, medieval women invented layering. Take that, modern hacks. But lip color wasn't only secret language. Lip size mattered. Small, pursed lips signified refinement. They spoke self-control, discretion, chastity. Large, full lips posed problems. Hinted at appetite, literal and metaphorical. Generous lips led to mockery, gossip, or quiet avoidance. No matter. Your lips silent, delicate, perhaps the perfect forbidden berry shade. You mastered face, body, posture, scent, but it means nothing unless people understand. Medieval beauty wasn't mere looks. It was walking resume, moral verdict, class declaration. Tonight, we peel gilded layers to reveal a deeper, far more dangerous equation. Beauty equals wealth equals virtue. Sounds absurd, but in a world ruled by God, gold, and gossip, appearance told soul's nature. Smooth skin meant physical and spiritual cleanliness. Pale complexion said you didn't toil like peasants, you were refined, preserved, nearer heaven. Perfect posture, symmetrical features, white hands, dainty feet, all signaled noble birth, presumably noble soul. Not mere culture, but doctrine. Medieval theologians and philosophers wrote treatises claiming beauty showed divine favor. If you looked good, God made you so as world sign, physically beautiful because morally pure. Reverse held too. Body flaws revealed soul flaws. Imagine that standard's terror. Crooked nose marked deviousness, birthmark implied curse, excess hair invited demonic suspicion, even scars read as warnings. Body revealed inner truth, terrifying to live under. Money played a role, naturally. Ideal beauty, like most history, cost dearly. Lotions, powders, gowns, delicate veils weren't cheap. Peasant women lacked saffron rinses or imported perfumes, or even mirrors, much less time to use them. Beauty became exclusive status symbol, as much as coat of arms. Features tied to wealth. Thinness celebrated, it meant no field labor. Fragility showed care, shelter, indoors life. Long fingers meant no shovels gripped. Smooth hands signaled no sewing, washing, or bread baking. The farther from labor, the more angelic in public eyes. Wonder if people believed it? Absolutely baked in medieval worldview. Artists painted noble women flawless, elongated because virtue looked like that. Poets waxed about alabaster brows, how the slender ankles. Not just prettiness, but goodness. Outer beauty proved inner worth. An illustrative case, Eleanor of Aquitaine's court. Ladies-in-waiting chosen for bloodline and virtue, that is, youth, thinness, paleness, composure. Court documents praised their beauty with reverence like relics. Poise, elegance, symmetry marked them moral exemplars, suitable companions. Darker side, world rewarded beautiful, punished those failing beauty's performance. Ugly, disfigured women seen wicked, witches, crones, disguised temptresses, not pitied but feared, unnatural, dangerous, unholy. A 13th century Spanish case shows noble woman accusing rival of witchcraft over facial rash. Logic, good women wouldn't bear such marks. Rival acquitted, but social ruin followed, not for deeds but looks. Men faced rules too, though slightly different. Handsome knights seemed trustworthy, heroic. Misshapen ones seemed tricksters, traitors. Moral system enforced via cheekbones and skin. Skeptics existed. Christine de Pizan, one of Europe's first female authors, challenged beauty-virtue link, argued women judged by actions, not looks. Radical then. She lost the battle, but planted seeds blossoming centuries later. Scholars still debate if beauty equals goodness belief was literal, symbolic, or convenient. Probably all. It eased life for powerful burdened others. Back in your chamber, you adjust veil before mirror. Skin powdered, cheeks faintly flushed, posture perfect. Tonight, you feel it. Under silk, meaning layers, a hum of anxiety. Watched all day, judged silently. A maid brings a letter, a suitor's poem calling you angel of form and faith. You read, smile as expected, but wonder, if scarred skin, different body, too loud laughter, frown, would he still see angel or mere woman? You spent days sculpting virtue's living statue, powdered, veiled, well-mannered, ghostly pale. You learned to perform wealth, chastity, and shrink into expected outlines. But don't pretend it's voluntary. Laws existed, sometimes absurd, dictating what you could wear, how, and fabric quality. Welcome to sumptuary laws, medieval fashion police, where dressing too well could mean legal trouble. Basics. Sumptuary laws regulated personal spending, especially clothing, meant to preserve moral order, but really kept lower classes in place. You couldn't just wear silk for liking shimmer. You had to earn it by birth, marriage, or divine right. Fake your status via clothes? That was fraud. Fashion fraud. For instance, 14th century Florence banned merchant-class women from gold or silver belts. England's Edward III forbade anyone below knight's daughter rank from fur. Let that sink. You freeze in harsh winters unless father owned land. Wear fur illegally? Risk fines, shame, or forced undressing in public. Nothing enforces hierarchy like being stripped for fashion crime. Color restrictions too. Costly dyes like Tyrian purple or saffron yellow reserved for elite. Blue, Virgin Mary's color, for nobility or clergy. Red trickier, rich dark reds regal, bright reds sinful or sensual. Crimson gown wearer could seem powerful or scandalous depending on judge. Clothing amount mattered. More layers meant wealth. Too many layers, embroidery, jewels hinted vanity or arrogance. Vanity was fast-tracked to damnation. Balance required. Show enough beauty for virtue, not enough to seem proud. God forbid anyone thought you enjoyed looking good. Headwear scrutinized too. The hennin, famous cone hat, so aristocratic some towns banned it among bourgeoisie. Imagine fined for too pointy hat. Cities employed clerks policing attire, medieval Joan Rivers with citation pad. In 15th century Venice, woman fined for pearls sewn inside sleeve lining. Hidden luxury still promoted pride, vanity. Like policing thought crime, fashion style, laws targeted women broadly. Authorities feared lavish dress made women unruly, seductive, uncontrollable. Thus, laws limited women's feast day, wedding, festival attire. Some towns required widows to wear dull colors permanently, because grief had official palette. Fringe theory, sumptuary laws more message than strict enforcement. Sometimes true, others public patrols enforced rules. Officials monitored markets, churches for fashion crimes, tailors fined for making clothes beyond client's rank, dressmakers hauled to court for too much lace. Lace, intricate, handmade, imported, clear wealth signifier. Too much without pedigree? Fine. One London woman claimed lace inheritance from noble cousin, but fined, no one believed, noble gave up lace. Contradiction. Expected to look nice, yet constrained. Like painting a masterpiece with half colors banned, brush-watched. Women judged by clerics, men peers, yet denied tools for success. Fear underneath, fear that blurred class lines led to chaos. Fear beautiful women led men astray. Fear too much fabric or trim sparked village anarchy. Sumptuary laws weren't modesty, but control punishing ambitious, imaginative, out of place. Imagine standing before carved chest of linens, velvets, silks. Pick gown, elegant, modest, subtle cuff embroidery, tasteful belt. Slip it on, smooth wonder. Too much, too little, too bold. Walking market, clerk glances, not smile or scowl, just look. Knight asks dance, she nods. Passing him, he ignores. She lowers eyes, smiles faintly, crease deepens. You survived youth, first marriage, fading social visibility with grace, powdered restraint, minimal eyebrow regrowth. But what if no longer overlooked but feared? Tonight we enter darkest medieval beauty corners. Women ugly, unwanted, not matching soft-lit ideal. Appearance equaled virtue. Wrong looks risked, worse than ugliness, unnaturalness. Basics, Middle Ages. Beauty wasn't skin deep, but proof of moral, spiritual correctness. Beautiful meant blessed, plain meant pitied, ugly meant danger. Othered, marginalized. Outliving youth and use meant risk of scapegoat. Less graceful aging, more witchcraft suspicion. Stereotypes, hooked nose, warts, devil's marks, wild hair. Consorting with demons suspected. These signs branded threats, especially poor, widowed, solitary. Beauty ideals set boundaries, step outside, become target. 15th century Germany's record of midwife Hilda, sharp-tongued, unkempt, blamed for noblewoman's child death due to looks. Accused, tortured, executed for appearance, not action. Medieval society ruthless to nonconformers, especially defiers. Aging widow with crooked spine drew whispers, scarred woman avoided, birthmark girl warned devil's kiss. People feared ugliness and interpreted it symbolically. Body a canvas of soul's truth. Asymmetry or limp meant twisted inner life, angry, bitter, cursed. Women bore projections brunt. 14th century theologian declared unsightly women shouldn't speak publicly, voices as jarring as faces. Harsh then, real sentiment in time where silence, modesty, loveliness intertwined in impossible life rope. Quirky, heartbreaking coping, beauty confessionals, rare letters or diaries where women detailed flaws, expressing guilt as penance. Apologizing to God for dull eyes or coarse hands as moral failings. Even so, women adapted. Some embraced differences. Folk healers, herbalists, cunning women on society's fringe turned fear to power. Cloaked in mystery, offered ominous advice, lived just beyond villages to unsettle visitors. Ugly became other became useful, until deadly. Irony, traits feared in witches, dark hair, arched brows, intense gaze, praised in court poetry for right women. Duchess with sharp eyes, fierce flower. Peasant widow with same, serpent, same features, different story. Difference was class, charm, context. Medieval beauty wasn't aesthetics alone. It was narrative control. Fear of ugliness extended beyond looks. Loud, assertive, opinionated women refusing to shrink seen as spiritually ugly. They shattered illusion women should be seen, barely heard. Past 25 labeled bitter, dangerous, unnatural, witch bait. Church piled on. Saints described as peerlessly beautiful. Sinful women, radiant or grotesque. No middle ground. Priests warned men, evil women wore angel or devil faces. Meaning, don't trust any, especially those who look lived in. Devotees cut meals, slept uncomfortably. rejected comfort for spiritual elegance. Some wore tight cords or belts symbolizing bodily rejection, a corset of faith. Margaret of Cortona wore spiked chain under dress, body marked by devotion. Her pain legacy, broken body monument, pattern clear. Women's suffering aestheticized, not just fasting, illness, injury, disfigurement, framed properly, elevated to near supernatural image. Corpses became worship objects. Saintly women dying untouched, exhumed, examined, displayed, bones laced, face masked in painted wax of eternal youth. People loved, prayed to bodies, kissed coffins, believed closeness blessed souls. Ideal woman died beautifully, stayed beautiful after death. Corpse yet holy. Not just religion, voyeuristic thrill in gazing at delicate dead. Stillness seductive, silence complete. Couldn't talk back, demand. Like perfect medieval lady, seen, never known. Creepy layer, obsession in secular art. Noble portraits mimic saintly corpses. Elongated faces, hollow cheeks, calm looks, pale blemish-free skin. Women not alive traditionally, but eternal, untouched by age, flesh, you. Beauty defended posthumously. Fast decaying saint corpse suspicious. Bad smell worse. Decay signaled corruption. Odor of sanctity phenomenon. Some saints' bodies smelled like flowers after death. Roses, lilies, myrrh. Sainthood not just pretty to see, but to smell. No pressure. Weird case, Saint Zita of Lucca's body allegedly intact, centuries examined lovingly by church officials. Tiny feet, delicate hands, teeth state catalogued like bridal checklist. Shopping for wife or preserving relic? Scholars debate meaning, purity, control, ultimate female agency erasure, likely all. Saintly bodies, fantasy, perfect womanhood. No appetite, no resistance, no decay, just beauty as surrender. Not all complied, some rebelled. Hildegard of Bingen canonized despite loud, opinionated, very much alive. Didn't shrink to pious silence, wrote music, science, philosophy. Portraits show eyes wide, mouth slightly open, ready to speak. Rare exception, brilliant, visible woman. Evening now. You sit in convent chapel, candlelight flickers on saint's silver bones in glass case, smile painted, eternal serenity mask. Other women pray. You close eyes, fold hands, wonder, peace, power, or final disappearance. Leaving chapel silently, saint's preserved face lingers like incense smoke. Stepping into Manor's long gallery, reminded beauty wasn't flesh alone, it was sewn, painted, woven into surroundings. Tonight, detour to medieval imagination's visual archives. Art of beauty, how filtered, edited, broadcast through tapestries, paintings, manuscripts, the original medieval thirst traps. Basics. Medieval art never realism, more propaganda. Noble women in illuminated manuscripts had impossible proportions, long necks, tiny waists, reed-like limbs, faces suspiciously alike, smooth, pale, serene. Not portraits, but wish lists. Each figure not just woman, but emblem of virtue, status, aesthetics. Tapestries amplified exaggeration, courtly love scenes with women reclining under trees, playing lutes, gently restraining falcons with wrists delicate as breadsticks. Hair golden waves, gowns floated like mist, expressions frozen between holy indifference and bored eroticism. Not real-life snapshots, but silk-stitched fantasy. Famous example, Lady in the Unicorn Tapestries. Each panel shows woman in surreal symbolic garden, animals, jewels, elaborate florals. Features identical across 6 works. Pale face, calm gaze, mysterious smirk implying, I've never pooped. Not a person. Now place yourself here. Aged out of innocence, now aging out of visibility. No more compliments, just glances. Younger court women ignore your opinions. Merchants won't lower prices. Songs no longer honor you. Mirror seems someone else's. One day a child stares in market, whispers to mother. You don't hear, but mother frowns, hurries child away. You smile as if unaware. That night you trace face lines in room. Still here, wise, breathing, but world sees you vanished. Disappeared from halls, marriage markets, poems, hungry courtier eyes once bowed to. But what if instead